Hey guys, and welcome to episode number 4 of the TeamMADE podcast, where we explore the art and science of collaboration, creation, and achievement. In a world often fixated on self-made narratives, we challenge the notion that success is solely the result of individual effort. We proudly champion the ethos of TeamMADE, not self-made. Okay, so this is first of many solo episodes that I will be doing. So if you're watching the video, obviously here I have my computer. I took down a lot of notes here, just to have more of a structure so I don't get lost into what we're about to dive into together. And like I said, it's the first solo episode of many that'll come because I'm super committed to consistently release some episodes every Wednesday, every Sunday, each and every week, whether it's solo episodes or in-studio guest episodes, whether that's one guest, two guests, or maybe even more eventually. But I have a lot of cool episodes and a lot of cool guests on the way, on my wish list also, that I would like to eventually have a conversation with. And I often refer to the podcast episodes with a guest or guests to as conversations and rather than interviews. That's kind of the goal here. And you know, as you could tell by the title of what I came up with to title this podcast, TeamMADE, not self-made. So it's going to get interesting. And, you know, like I said, I'm committed to these episodes, whether it's solo, whether it's, you know, the guest podcast episodes. I'm very, very committed, and I'm going to do my best to stay consistent also because, like many of you probably watching and or listening to me right now, consistency is a very difficult thing to have. And, you know, I'm guilty of that. So hopefully you guys could keep me accountable as well. But let's dive into this episode right away. I don't want to go for too long. I want to aim for maybe 15 minutes or so of these solo episodes, kind of make them express so that you can enjoy them maybe on a car ride, a quick run, cardio session when you're at the gym or whatnot. So today's episode, and you could probably already see it with the title of this one, it's The Power of Quitting, Lessons from My Youth. And as you'll get to listen to these solo episodes, these are really topics that I want to share with you all based off of my experiences, whether it was playing hockey, competitive hockey at a very young age, winning physique competitions, turning pro in those physique competitions, diving my nose into a lot of business endeavors, specifically a lot of e-commerce, whether that was photography, whether it's my fitness coaching business, whether that was a clothing brand that I owned. A lot of the experiences and the episodes and the subjects that we will discuss together and that I will dive into is really going to be just about my experiences, how I dealt with certain things, how I still use difficult scenarios to my advantage, so to speak, up until this day. So yeah, and that's pretty much the goal. So I know a lot of it could either benefit a lot of you, benefit myself, just because I'll be kind of going back into these subjects, and it's going to be some good, cool conversation pieces that I could interact with you guys, whether it's in the comments, DMs, or whatnot. So when I was 15 years old, I had an experience that brought me down so much, and I still remember to this day. And I spoke to one of I think the first episode, it was in French. I had mentioned this, and actually recently too again, I had mentioned this, and I always get goosebumps, and kind of a light bulb clicked in my mind that I was like, I gotta share this. I gotta speak to you about this scenario because I keep bringing it up. It holds a lot of value. It taught me so much. And, you know, looking back at this at my age now, 29 years old, soon to be 30, not yet, but soon, you know, I think it's going to be very beneficial for you guys to listen to what I have to say. And I just would want to share it more publicly. So yeah, and it's something that I really want to discuss just because I get goosebumps from it every time I mention to it, every time I'm in a conversation and I discuss it and I talk about this. So, and if you're wondering, if you're watching the video and you're not just listening to the audio, I have my computer here, just like I said, because I don't want to get off track, and I want to make sure I cover everything. So I took down some notes, make sure I want to, again, cover everything I need to and not jump too quick or come back on my footsteps. So just to make it a bit more clear. Yeah. I have my fair share of experiences with both successes and failures. And I really wanted to look back and share what that quitting experience was like at 15 years old, how significant it was just to lay out such a good foundation looking back on it now, and realizing how big of a catalyst that quitting experience was. Whether you want to label it as giving up, whether you want to label it like I am as quitting, there was such a powerful lesson through that. And I'm very grateful that I kind of walked away from what we're about to dive into. And yeah, I had quit. So let's kind of get into it. Enough of me kind of rambling, but let's dive into it right away. I'm going to take you back to the 15-year-old Joey, the 15-year-old me. As you might have seen or listened to some episodes or even some posts on social media over the years, as you may know, I have a background in ice hockey. I played ice hockey pretty much all my life growing up, very competitive. I gave that career up with the aspiration of obviously playing professional hockey. I kind of shut the door on that just because it was another opportunity for me in obviously my fitness, in the fitness domain, in the social media space. I went headfirst in that. I put all my eggs in one basket, dove into that, and obviously it led to where I am today. I succeeded at many things, failed at many things, tried out different things, but yeah, all my life grew up playing hockey. And this experience that I'm about to share with you all is an experience specifically when I was in the midst of trying out for a couple teams, and I was 15 years old. So here in Canada, in Quebec to be specific, we have grade 11, which is the last year of high school. And at that time, I was playing, we'll label it as midget. I was in my first year midget. So that's a category in hockey here that is for your age group. So I was 15 years old, and I saw a lot of my friends at my age starting to apply to colleges, to CJEPs in other words here. We're starting to apply because obviously grade 11, it's the last year of high school. People will end up graduating, moving on. And for me, I always had the mentality that hockey for me in my life was always number one. Above school. So that's just the mentality that I had. And I remember, sitting in my room, it was March. It was March break. And I was like, I see everyone around me applying to all these colleges, these CJEPs. What am I going to do? I didn't want to apply and eventually attend the next year at a college in downtown Montreal and then have my hockey career and play my hockey that same year separately to my schooling. There would have been too much traveling. It would have been way too difficult from where I was living to attend my practices, my games. I would have had too much effort and time dedicated to my schooling and just the traveling, and also, money towards all of the schooling, whether that's books, the tuition, or whatnot. So I was like, my family and I had just moved. It's been a couple of years to Mirabel. We'll call it M City, just so that it's shorter and that you understand what I'm talking about. So we had just moved to M City for a couple of years. I was playing hockey in another city just because I grew up playing in that other specific city. So we kept my file in that other city, just because I was familiar with obviously the coaching staff, the players I was growing up with as we were leveling up, moving on up into different hockey categories. So even living in M City, I still just wanted to remain where I was because that was my roots. I was comfortable. It was my comfort space. I knew everybody. And so it came to that year that other city where I was previously living with my family kind of didn't want to have another player from an outside city because it would have just been too populated in terms of the amount of athletes in their category and their age group. So I had to obviously kind of sign up and move on into M City in terms of my hockey career. So I remember it was March break. I was sitting on my desktop, and So I was like, what do I do? I got to try out for a team. I wanted to play, the best category at my age group at 15 years old that I could. So I got on the computer. I was like, okay, I'm going to message the general manager of the person in charge of the highest caliber that I could play, which is called, in French, it's called Midget Espoir. So it's all the best 15-year-olds. And when you arrive at that category in that league, it's not just one city. It's a combination of a lot of cities within a certain radius that all come together to form one good team. Versus, in the same league, you have another combination of all the cities that make one team, and so on. So I had messaged the general manager, and at that time, I was, like I said, 15 years old. I was 5 feet and a bit, so not even 5'1". I was 99 pounds. So I was very, very small, which was obviously a big struggle for me trying to pierce and level up into my hockey career and play the best that I can at my age group, just because, I would look to the side of me in grade 11 and people would already be like 5'11", 6'4", 6'2", fully developed. I wasn't. I was way behind my years physically, which is a funny coincidence now and very ironic now. But so I hopped on my computer. I found this team that I wanted to try out for. I wanted to be a walk-on. They didn't know who I was. Nobody knew who I was in that area, just because I never played in that area because we moved to M City a couple of years prior. So I sent this message to the general manager saying like, hey, my name is Joey Horniak. I previously played hockey in, this city for X amount of years. I recently moved to M City. It's been a couple years now. The previous city and team that I was playing for doesn't want an outskirt living athlete to play for them. They don't accept transfers anymore. Is there any possible way that this upcoming season I could get a walk-on tryout for you guys, like this summer? Can I, once September comes, can I get a tryout? Can I try out for you guys? And a couple days passed, and I get a reply back from this general manager. I can't remember what his name was, but I got the reply back, and funny enough, and I was kind of expecting this, the first question after saying like, "Hey Joey," the first question he asked me was, "What category of hockey did you play?" Or I might have this flipped over, but what category of hockey did you play previously? And what is your height and what is your weight? As soon as I read that, I was like, oh God, here we go. They're not even going to invite me or allow me to be a walk-on into this camp and try out for this team just because, I'm super small. They don't want to invest into someone like me. So then I replied back. I was like, I'm 5'6", I'm 5'7", 135 pounds. Obviously, that wasn't true. I didn't have confidence in saying that I was 5 feet, 99 pounds, just because I was afraid of the refusal, and I was afraid of what they might think of me. He then had replied back to that saying like, hey, awesome, come and try out. A few months passed. It was tryout day. There was 2 games that day, 2 practices, 2 kind of games, just so that they could see how do we divide these players up that are coming to try out, who goes where, who goes into this, midget espoir team. So I remember I was with my mom. My mom ended up driving me to this hockey tryout. Now, like I said earlier, I didn't know any of the other kids at this age. I didn't know what the arena looked like. I had no idea who the coaching staff was, who this person that I emailed was, the parents, the city of what it looked like. I had no clue of anything. I was just like, I'm going to show up with my hockey bag, my hockey sticks, my small lying size that I said to the general manager. I ended up showing up, and as soon as I got there, maybe 10 minutes away, I started to get like that fragile stomach. I started to get like, oh God, I'm not hungry. I'm not thirsty, like nothing. I was just like so worried. I remember arriving at the arena finally, getting my hockey bag, getting my hockey sticks out of the car, walking up to the arena, opening the doors. And as soon as I opened those like glass doors, even prior to that, just seeing parents outside, whether it was like them talking to each other, smoking, whatever it is, I'm just like walking by them, and I could kind of feel already that there was this eerie look, feeling that was just gazing at me and focusing on me, just obviously because of probably my hockey bag color, because I was in a different city, different team prior, and my size. So that already didn't start well even prior to opening the door. So I open up the door, walk into the arena. I already felt like this darkness inside the lobby of the arena. And now I don't know where anything is. So I'm kind of like stumbling, looking around, looking at where the room is. I ended up finding the room. And as soon as I turned the corner, the door to the dressing room where all the players would be with their hockey bags, they're all there and the door was already open. I turn the corner, look in the room even before entering, and I'm just gutted. So I go into the door, walk into the dressing room. There's about I'd say 15 kids there already, maybe 12 to 15 kids there already, just because I guess I was a bit later in terms of when I would arrive. But there was about 12 to 15 kids. I walk in and like I said, I was just gutted. I tried to hide it. Nobody even said hello to me. No one came to shake my hand. Nobody asked nothing. And, walking in there, I saw that everybody had such a good chemistry together because they obviously grew up together playing there. They all knew each other. And I was the outsider just walking in on there randomly. And now you have me that has kind of this bullseye on my back just because it's obviously contact hockey. These guys are like 6'4", 6'2", huge guys that are like 15 years old. It was up north also. So it's these more like developed farmer, so to speak, kids. And that's where it started. I was like, oh my God, this is heavy for me. Walk onto the practice on the ice, everything begins. And as the practice goes on, this is about at 11 a.m. The practice begins, and 11 a.m. We were doing drills, and I was just, unable to even continue. It was almost like an asthma attack, an anxiety attack. I just had a hard time breathing. I was just questioning everything. I felt like leaving midway through that practice. Luckily, and I don't know what held me down to that ice and kept me on that ice, but I stayed, finished up the practice. It was such a difficult, one of the hardest things competitively in terms of my hockey career that I've experienced. Even I think the coaches tried to get me on one-on-one drills against their biggest defensemen, their biggest players, just I guess to test this new kid out, see what he's made of. Let's see how strong he is actually, even though he's very small. Does he actually have a heart, or everything? I was thinking of all this, probably overthinking at that time. And so the practice finishes. I get undressed in about less than 3 minutes. It took me so fast. I didn't even shower. I left, didn't speak to anyone, left, walked out to the arena. And as soon as I saw my mom, I started crying. I said, we got to leave. I'm not coming back for the second practice, the second tryout, the second game. I'm not doing it. I remember we ended up going to a local Harvey's that was 15 minutes away, just because obviously the practice finished at 12:30. Had to maybe get something, to eat. I remember sitting on that chair. We sat outside of the Harvey's because they had some tables and chairs. And I told my mom, that's it. I quit. I'm not going back there tonight. I'm not doing it. I'm done. I'm leaving. I didn't want to feel what I felt on the ice. I didn't want to feel what I felt when I walked into that dressing room, seeing all those eyeballs on me, that bullseye on my back, even the parents, just everything. I'm even speechless now because I can't imagine. I'm just imagining someone who's maybe going through this experience at the same age that I was, in this same scenario, as of right now, playing minor hockey. And I just quit. It was such a heavy feeling. I was crying so much, as if the world was ending. I felt like I was the lone guy out, which was kind of the case. I had so much anxiety. I was overthinking. I didn't have confidence on the ice at that practice, and I just quit. I wasn't even able to breathe. And I couldn't take it anymore. And I didn't want to experience that anymore at all. All that sadness, all that anxiety, stayed with me, went back home. So I actually didn't go back to that second practice. I went back home, and the day after, and obviously, that day kind of settled back down. I kind of regained my neutral thoughts and the way I was feeling. That next day, I remember my mom saying, like, she knew I was down because I was looking so forward to this tryout the previous day, that the next day my mom said, hey, and I remember this like it was yesterday. My mom said, oh, I'm going to do some errands, like go to the bank, go do a grocery. Would you like to just come with me and take your mind off of things? So I said yes. I hopped in the car with her. It was like a truck that she had. Obviously, I followed her to do her errands, and right beside the bank and the grocery store, it was like kind of like a strip mall in like an L. And I'm just trying to give you a bit of context so you could have it visually inside your mind, just because I have it with me now. It was like an L, like a strip mall. So it was the grocery store, the bank, and then right beside, just at the end in the 90 degree of that L, was a gym. And I looked at my mom when she came back in the car, because I stayed in the car while she went to run in the bank and come back to the car. I was like, can we go look at the gym and sign up? And my mom looked at me, and I think, she was a bit hesitant, like for a split second, because it was so random. But I think she kind of connected the dots, and we went to the gym, actually signed up. That was the day after we signed up to the gym. I ended up getting an appointment with that trainer there, who actually, ironically, specialized in hockey players. Which was obviously very convincing. I was like, wow, what are the chances that the gym, the closest gym to my house, that trainer at the gym specializes in hockey players, that there was a gym next to the grocery store in the bank that my mom was going to the day after that all of this happened. And I just found something in me that, I guess, my thoughts accumulated all of these thoughts and feelings, and put together everything like puzzle pieces. And I was like, I got to do something for myself to be able to grow my confidence, not feel like this ever again if I'm faced with a similar situation or similar scenario. So went to the gym, signed up, had an appointment with the trainer, met with the trainer. I think it was like maybe within a week. I know it was a month before my 16th birthday. That's where I found out I was 99 pounds, 5 feet. And he made me a program. It was for 4 days to begin with, 4 days a week. And I followed it to the T, like a robot. I was so military-like. It was my main focus, my main goal. I was so like brainwashed by following this program. I was so disciplined, and, knowing what to expect next time around. If ever I was faced with a certain situation like this, working out, be able to grow myself physically, because that was my weakest link. Like I said, wanted to be able to control and digest a scenario similar to the one that I experienced with that dressing room and on the ice feelings. I wanted to be able to, digest it and take it better than I did. And, like I said, I followed that program to the T, 4 days a week. I think I even went sometimes like 5 days a week, just because I was like, the more I put in, the more I'm going to get out. I remember I kept reminding myself, even during my exercises, even before going to these workouts, I remember telling myself two things. I need to get bigger, and I need to improve my performance on the ice, so that when I'm on the ice, like I'm bulletproof, I have a bulletproof mindset, and my physical weight and my physical being and performance is like above average and above the top, where I could just like lap people, and where people look at me and not have the same visual as they did when I went at that tryout and practice, like, oh, we got to aim for this guy and have a bullseye. Rather improve my physical and mental state to be like, if they look at me, they're gonna be like, holy shit, like this guy, I don't want to approach this guy. Whether he's too fast, he works like a dog. I just wanted that. I wanted that. And I think having that goal attached to the gym, and having that previous, like, I'll put it like this, shitty experience that I experienced such at a young age. Well, from what I thought was a shitty experience, obviously now is a different story looking back on it. But, it was just, I didn't want to feel like that ever again. And it totally shifted my mindset. And I immediately just wanted to get stronger into, in what I was lacking, and ultimately improve just my self-confidence. And, that's obviously a story, a scenario that I obviously want to share, just because looking back on it almost like 15 years later, it's still it's a highlight to my foundation of my life, of my competitive hockey career. It's something that, like I said earlier, when I speak of it, I still get like goosebumps, get speechless. If you get me on a certain day talking about it, I might even get a bit emotional. That's not the case today. I might in another episode, but and I just wanted to also, if you're listening to this, if you're hearing me, if you're able to maybe connect to something that happened to you similar to what I'm speaking of, maybe in, whether it's you playing a certain sport, a job, anything like that, I just wanted to say, like, when you find yourself facing a decision to quit something at a young age, especially, remember that quitting doesn't always mean giving up on your dreams and or goals, which at the time, I thought it was like the end of the world. I thought it was like there was nothing after that I could do. That was the only team. That was the only place. If it wasn't that, it's nothing else. If I don't make that team, I can't play for another team. I could never eventually play pro hockey or college hockey or anything like that. That was obviously, when you're in it, especially at a young age, you think that's like the only thing. The only thing that exists, and if you're not part of it, then there's nothing else. But that's what I thought. And quitting and or giving up, however you want to label it as, I'm labeling it as quitting, because I deliberately did quit. And I think giving up has a bad rep to it, so I'm just obviously using the term quit. But it could, especially at a young age, be such a powerful act of self-awareness and courage. And you sometimes don't even realize it at that given moment, again, at such a young age. But as the years go on, and as you get older, and as you tend to get more experiences in your back pocket with other different endeavors and into other different domains, such as business, relationships, or whatnot, you tend to look back on those type of experience and be like, yeah, I did have a lot of courage. I was very self-aware to be like, I'm quitting, and look at where I'm at today, and look how helpful it was for everything that I'm doing up to now, and everything that I did up to this point. So, if you're in a similar situation, even now listening to this, even if you're not, a young teenager listening or watching this, be sure to take a step back. Reflect on your true passions and priorities, and understand that quitting can be a pathway to growth and self-discovery, which in my case was 100% that. It was 100% growth, 100% self-discovery. I learned so much about myself. I grew obviously a lot physically, and grew so much mentally, to now where I am today. I always label my mindset as like bulletproof. And that scenario, that event in my life at a young age played such a huge role. So, for my advice to young people, or even someone listening or watching to this right now, if that is you, if you're in a similar situation, trust your intuition, be open to change, and embrace the opportunities also that, arise when you make room for new experiences and pursuits, and know that quitting or giving something up, in other words, is not the end all be all. And it's not like you're a loser or you're not good enough either, because, having the words quit and giving up and or even failure might be linked, from what a lot of the outside people are saying. It's often misunderstood. It's misunderstood, misviewed. Quitting, giving up, failure often falls into the column for a lot of people like, I'm a loser, I'm not good enough, but that's really not the case. There's a lot of learning aspects about that. There's a lot of tools for it to be a catalyst to get to a better level and or be introduced to other things, which in my situation was obviously working out in the gym, and that's what I do for a living now. And I've helped a lot of people, obviously develop their physique and develop their performances for their given sports in their lives. So sometimes quitting is the first step on a journey to something even more meaningful and fulfilling. When you're in it, it feels, like I said, the end of the world and that there's nothing else good that awaits. But I'm going to say it again, that's not the case. So I just want to throw that out there. And, this experience that I just shared with you, like I said, is such a big highlight. And whether this was facing mental challenges, sports encounters, relationships, or whatever, I went through this very young, so my body and mind kind of got conditioned. And the more reps you're confronted with, or the more times you're confronted with scenarios like this that put you to the test and put you in a state where you have to be self-aware and make a decision for yourself, you get conditioned. You learn to break down the situation better. You learn to also step back and stay composed. Like I said, be self-aware and consider that many things in life always happen for a reason. And I know that for some, the quote or the saying like, everything happens for a reason kind of sounds like cheesy or often too much thrown out there, but it's really true. And sometimes at that given moment, you rarely know what the reason is, and you only find out the reason later on in life, or when you're confronted with another event or situation that you're like, oh, damn, that's the reason. That's why I went through that shitty situation, that tough situation, that emotional situation. But it always leads to a better outcome. You just develop and grow more as a person to be able to, like I said, confront these situations better and to deal with these situations better. And it can only benefit and be a growth tool moving forward. So, and I truly believe that, especially at a young age, it's actually, in my point of view, important to go through these rough and tough times, whether it be quitting something, not succeeding at the given moment, being told no, or even losing a loved one. It shapes you. It gives you some tools that you could carry along in your toolbox for the rest of your life. And that's a metaphor I like to use, the whole tools aspect, just because you were able to acquire that tool, kind of like in a video game also. Like you acquire that tool, you have that tool as like your superpower that you could use for when, you're at a certain level, or when you're confronting a certain boss, or, something like that. So it's cool because you're able to gain those tools, store those tools in your toolbox or in your shed, depending on how many tools you end up getting, and use them later on in life. And the most important key point about this, especially at a young age, is that you still have many years ahead of you. And like I said earlier, when I was at that 15-year-old Joey, I was like, that's the end all be all. There's nothing else. That's the only team. That's the only place I could play, blah, 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 blah. But looking back, I'm like, you're 15 years old, even 20, even 25. There's so many years ahead of you that you could like fail or give up or quit 100 different things and still end up succeeding and, still keep moving forward positively. But I understand that when you're in a situation, it's those feelings and nothing else. You're living it at that moment, so you can't really think of anything else. But just know that there's years ahead of you. And I don't care if you're 40 years old, if you're 15 years old like I was, if you're 50, you still got many years ahead of you. And just know that it doesn't take a lot of time either for, your body to change, if that's your goal. It doesn't take a lot of time for you to generate more money, to meet someone, to succeed at your given endeavor or whatever you have that you're pursuing or whatever your goal is. It doesn't take a lot of time. Yes, it takes patience, but it doesn't take that much time. And 1 year, again, if that's the duration of the ROI of what you're doing, the return of investment that you're putting in, 1 year is not a lot, for example. It goes by so fast. And, I just wanted to remind you of that. And as I'm sitting here talking to you about this, about my situation, sharing my experience at such a young age of what I dealt with when I was 15 years old, which was the goosebump feeling even now speaking about it. I have 2 questions for you. So whether you're watching and or listening to this, number 1, are there areas, and you ask yourself this, listen to me asking you this question or these questions. Number 1, are there areas, where you might be holding onto something that no longer serves you? Ask yourself that question. Number 2, can you identify situations or pursuits where quitting could lead to personal growth and a happier, more fulfilling life? Ask yourself those 2 questions. And if I spoke too fast, come back, rewind it, come back to this, and ask yourself those 2 questions. If it's not asking yourself at this given moment, write it down or come back to this podcast episode. Ask yourself these, because I think self-awareness plays a huge role into making the right decisions, being reassured of where you are at this given moment, being reassured of the decision and or decisions that you'll end up making and or will make. So ask yourself those 2 questions. If you kind of have a connection with me as of right now, listening to this and listening to what I went through, and remember that this is it. Remember, that the decision to quit, that was a tongue twister, is a deeply personal one, depending on, where you are at in life. And it's not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom and self-awareness. I kind of said this earlier in terms of the self-awareness and courage, but again, it's just a reminder. Embrace the idea that quitting can clear the path for new opportunities, passions, and self-discovery. I know I'm repeating myself, but just to finish, this episode and to just kind of summarize everything and bring, close the circle back in onto everything. Take the lessons that I've shared today and apply them to your own life. And don't be afraid to embark on your own journey of growth and transformation, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's all about learning, growing, transforming, and that's what it was for me, and that's how I'm sharing my experience. And even up to this day, that's looking back on everything, I'm like, yeah, I grew a lot. I'm still transforming. I learned a ton about staying composed, being more self-aware, learning that there's more ahead of me, learning that there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's more doors, 1 door closes, 3, 4, 5, 10 end up opening. And, I've experienced it a lot of times that I know that that's true. So yeah, to finish, message me on socials, email me, or even comment on this episode if you had a similar experience, and or even if you're going through something right now. Remember, we're a team. I know this is a solo episode, but like the podcast is, we're a team. Together, everyone achieves more, hence TeamMADE. I'm not a huge believer into self-made, and that only, grew onto me over time. So I truly champion the ethos of TeamMADE. Like I said earlier, we should as well, help each other, be there for one another, and achieve great things together. And, we're always stronger as a team. So hopefully you just, you enjoyed this episode. It was maybe longer than I expected, but it's my first solo episode. There's going to be a lot more. I'm going to be sharing a lot more experiences of my life, whether that was business, physique competitions, my training, my nutrition, my lifestyle, obviously my hockey background and foundation, because that's such a huge part of my life. So I appreciate everyone watching, listening, and tuning into today's episode. Obviously, I don't have a guest, so it's just me. So I appreciate you tuning in, listening to what I had to say and share. And yeah, if you made it this far, don't forget to subscribe if you're watching from YouTube. Follow the episode wherever you're listening to it, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, rate the episode if you can. If you want to take a few minutes, that's going to help me tremendously. It's some great feedback analytics that I could look back on and know that I'm doing, a great job, and that you enjoy these episodes and these shareful, thoughtful episodes. And leave me some feedback. And, don't be shy to comment or reach out to me in my DMs or emails. And if I could be of help for you, if I could be of service, let me know. I would appreciate if you just give this episode a thumbs up, subscribe, like I said, to my YouTube channel, and stay tuned for the next episode every Wednesday and Sunday, whether it's solo, with a guest, or more. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one.